The 2026 NFL Draft is still several months away. However, as they all say, it is never too early to do a 2026 NFL mock draft. So in today's video, I'll be doing just that. I'll be giving you guys my 2026 NFL mock draft. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. As you can see, we are on the PFF mock draft simulator, and I did go ahead and change up the order because I thought PFF's order was just a little bit off. So if you guys mess with the order, you can let me know in the comment section below. And we are going to begin with at number 1, the New York Jets. The Jets are yet again drafting in the top 5. I think they'll probably end up with the number 1 or number 2 overall pick, and that means they're probably going to be taking their franchise quarterback. Now, I don't know if Aaron Glenn will be the head coach next year. I feel like that's completely up in the air right now. But one thing I do know, Justin Fields is probably not going to be starting for this team next year. I think he'll probably serve a backup role, maybe even probably be traded to another team that maybe wants to give him a shot there. Although I think Justin Fields' time as a starter is probably winding down. This is a very weird year when it comes to the quarterback class because unlike last year where there wasn't too many guys that were first-round caliber quarterbacks, this year there's actually a handful of guys that totally can be drafted in round 1. It's just which ones go in front of the other guys. Because right now you sort of have this cluster of about 4 guys, maybe 5 if Mateer steps his game up, but it's really just 4. Those being Mendoza, Moore, Simpson, and Sellers. I can make a case for all 4 of these guys going number 1 overall in this draft. So honestly, you guys can make your choice as to which one you guys want here. I'm going to go with my personal choice too, as well as which one I think the Jets would actually take. And I'm ultimately going to go ahead and take Ty Simpson, the Alabama quarterback. I feel like there's some red flags with almost every single one of these quarterbacks, maybe besides Ty Simpson. And even there, I guess there are some red flags to Ty Simpson in terms of just overall sample size. But Mendoza runs a very RPO heavy, easy throw type of scheme in Indiana, and it totally works for him, and he's very impressive within that scheme. But he doesn't make a ton of high level, tight window throws. So he can make them, don't get it twisted, but that's just not what his game is right now for Indiana. For Dante Moore, he had the really bad game versus Indiana, so that's a bit of a red flag. And then Lenore Sellers is a complete work in progress. At least with Ty Simpson, yes, he had the bad game versus Florida State in week 1, but since then, he's been damn near perfect. Playing great football. He's making high-level NFL throws. I think today I would probably go with him maybe as my first overall pick in this draft. If his sample size were to continue to increase and he continues to play at this level, I think he'd probably go number 1. Then that puts me on the clock here at number 2 at the Tennessee Titans. They have their quarterback, but boy, do they have a lot of other questions they need to answer. There's a lot of ways I can go here, but I'm just going to go with the guy that's been the most dominant and arguably the best player in all of college football in Ruben Bain Jr. You want to talk about more of a complete edge prospect, somebody that has the bend that can get around the corner, the strength to bull rush, and somebody that is really reliable in the run game as well. I know PFF gets a lot of shit, especially recently with their overall grading system, but when the numbers are this high, that means the guy is doing something clearly well. Look at the numbers here. 92.6 versus Notre Dame, 82.1 versus Florida State, 93.8 against Florida. He's going up against NFL players, and he's absolutely dominating them. He doesn't have the numbers quite yet to back it up. I think he only has like 3 sacks on the season. But trust me, he is absolutely getting after the quarterback, and the numbers will come eventually. He is absolutely probably the top overall player in this draft. Next up at number 3, we got the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns do have 2 first-round picks in this mock draft. The next one will be at number 17. So I'm going to go ahead and take my franchise quarterback here. No, I don't think it's Shador, nor do I think it's Dylan Gabriel. I think both those guys maybe on different teams next year. I think especially Shador might be on a different team next year. And Dylan Gabriel will probably just serve as the team's backup quarterback. A lot of ways I can go here, but I do think if I'm the Browns, I'm wanting to make sure I get a hit here and not take a risky player like a Lenore Sellers. So if I'm looking for a surefire, I'm getting a future starter in the NFL, even if he's not a top 10 quarterback, but he's going to be a good starting quarterback for the future, I'm taking Fernando Mendoza. So I'm going to take Fernando here just because I think he's probably the safest quarterback in this class. I know that he can be a high-level quarterback at the NFL level, even if he doesn't reach the highs of potentially maybe a Dante Moore or Sellers. I know for a fact I'm getting a starting level quarterback, which is what I want if I'm the Cleveland Browns. We have pieces to work with. We just need a guy at quarterback that can be a starting caliber quarterback, and I think Mendoza can be that. Next up at number 4, we got the Miami Dolphins. I could hypothetically go quarterback here, but the buyout for Tua Tagovailoa would just be a lot for this team to eat, and I just don't see them doing that. This is not a team that is just a quarterback away. They have a lot of work they need to get done on this roster, and there are some pieces here that make a ton of sense. I could go with the guy like Peter Woods to hopefully pair up with Kenneth Grant for the future, because I think that defensive line is probably going to be going through a bit of a reset surrounding Kenneth Grant and Chop Robinson with another guy. could make this team a little bit more interesting. I would love to go offensive line, but frankly, I don't know if there's a lineman that I would take with the 4th overall pick. Fanau and Mauga, or how you pronounce his name, are probably your 2 top guys here, but I just don't think I can reasonably take one at number 4 here. They could go safety and Caleb Downs, but you just traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, so that wouldn't make a ton of sense. I would love to take one of these corners, but Jermon McCoy hasn't even seen the field yet because of injuries, so that's a bit of a projection right now. I'm going to go with the guy that I think is the most dominant player, and I know you spent a first-round pick on Kenneth Grant last year, but you need 2 down defensive interiors in the first place, and I think Peter Woods is probably the better player. Grant has not looked great so far this year, but of course you can't give up on him. I think getting a bit more physical up front with Peter Woods, Kenneth Grant, and Chop Robinson kind of building that young foundation on your defensive line makes a ton of sense. And with the impending, Tyreek Hill trade and even maybe getting off the Tua contract, I think there is some work that can be done to make this team a better team. I think getting a guy like Peter Woods would continue to build that foundation on the defensive line. Get more physical, get more strong, and then build towards the future. I like that pick in Peter Woods. All right, number 5, I got the New Orleans Saints. I would go with an edge, but to be honest with you, I just don't know if TJ Parker is worthy of being taken this high. His 2024 year was so much better than what he's had in 2025. Not that he's been bad in 2025 per se, but it's just been a bit of a step back. And that does kind of scare me when I'm taking somebody who has regressed in his, what is probably going to be his final year in college. Typically, you want to see a guy continue to get better and better and better. So that way, when they get to the NFL, they can continue to get better and they don't, get to the NFL as a finished product. I kind of worry a little bit about that with TJ Parker. I still think he's a good talent. I just don't know if I can reasonably take him at number 5. I like Caleb Downs, but it's the safety conundrum. I can't draft a safety number 5. I think I'm going to go with Jordan Tyson. I know a lot of people will say, why not take a quarterback? Why not take a quarterback? To me, I look at this Saints team and I say, I think they have a totally fine starting quarterback in Spencer Rattler. Is Rattler the savior, the future guy? I don't know the answer to that, but I know he's good enough to be at least a starter in the NFL. Even if he's not a high level guy, he can get you from point A to point B. He's also not too good enough to where you're winning a ton of games. So you have Spencer Rattler just holding down that quarterback position, playing good enough to keep you competitive while you're going to be drafting high draft picks for the foreseeable future. So to me, I think you ride it out with Spencer Rattler for a year, maybe 2, maybe even 3 years, and then draft your quarterback in the future when you have a better roster to surround that young quarterback with. I also don't think we could just give up on Tyler Shock, who they drafted in the 2nd round for a reason. So I think you have to surround those guys with talent. So I'm going to go ahead and draft Jordan Tyson here. I think the team will trade away Chris Olave, and you're going to have Jordan Tyson be your future wide receiver 1. I like that pickup. He is really developed as a nuanced route runner. He's got exceptional hands. He catches everything. I think for the New Orleans Saints, you put him as your wide receiver 1 with Shaheed and some of those other young offensive linemen. You're starting to build a talented offensive core to build around for the future. And again, you can draft your quarterback down the road. All right, number 6, I got the Cincinnati Bengals. And with the 6th overall pick, I feel like I have to go somewhere on the offensive line. I know that the question will come, why not fix the defense? You got all of these issues defensively. But I feel like I have to go offensive line. When you have a guy in Joe Burrow who's making, $50 million a year, you have to protect him. And unfortunately, this team has not done a good enough job of surrounding him with pieces outside of Amarius Mims. And I mean, that's about it. The interior has been pathetic. I'm going to go with Francis, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, Mauigoa, just because I think he is the best option for this team, because I think he can play tackle, but I also believe he's probably more suited as a guard in the NFL. He's really strong at the point of attack. He's definitely elusive enough to play in that guard position, and I think long-term his best suited position would be at guard, because he does have tackle feet, but he's also strong enough to hunker down and get into a guard stance and really make life difficult for defensive tackles. I think you stick him in at right or left guard, pairing up to, a Mims and Orlando Brown, and kind of work on this offensive line to get a little bit better for next year. All right, number 7, I got the Raiders. I arguably could make the conversation for a quarterback here, but you gave Geno Smith the contract, and I think you have to ride it out with Geno Smith for as long as possible. A lot of ways I could go here. I could go Caleb Downs, because I know for a fact they can use a safety. I could go with a guy like Arvell Reese, who is just having an exceptional football season. They need help in the secondary with Jermon McCoy. They could use more help on the defensive line. But I obviously have to go with an offensive lineman here. This offensive line is not good. You invested in a running back this year. You've invested in Brock Bowers. You have to be able to support your quarterback to give him time to give the ball to his playmakers. And of course, if you want to have a run game, you got to be able to run the football. None of these guys, in my opinion, are really worthy of a top 10 pick, but because of the situation the Raiders have put themselves in, I'm going to go ahead and take Spencer Fanau here. He really struggled versus Texas Tech. Those guys, I mean, they have, you'll see here in a little bit, they got 2 guys coming off the edge here, David Bailey and Romello Heights, who are absolute studs, and they dominated Spencer Fanow. But I still think he's a good enough tackle prospect to where I feel good enough about him being either my left or right tackle in the future, and kind of building around him and some of these other young guys like Jackson Powers Johnson. So I'm gonna take Spencer Fanow here to add to the offensive line. All right, number 8, the New York Giants. They arguably could have been another team that would have taken one of these two tackles right here, but unfortunately that did not quite work out for them. I'm gonna make the really easy pick here and take Caleb Downs. Tyler Nubin has been a little bit up and down, and of course you do have Javon Holland, who can kind of play in the box, can also play deep. I think you have Caleb Downs, who is just a better version of both those guys. Caleb Downs is arguably the second or maybe even the best player of this draft. He is an absolute star. If he didn't play safety, he would probably go number 1 overall, but because he plays safety, it kind of makes it a bit more difficult to take him number 1. But you can kind of do whatever you want with him. You can put him inside the box. You can play him deep. He's excellent in run support. He's a willing tackler. He's excellent in coverage. He can get interceptions. He would kind of round out this defense for New York in a nice, positive way. I think they need to address cornerback as well. But I think you also addressed part of that, last year by adding in some of those other guys who you're hoping can get healthier and can start to play better. I think adding a Caleb Downs to your safety room makes it a lot better. Now you have Caleb Downs, Javon Holland, and then you can also sprinkle in Tyler Nubin a little bit. Think it sounds pretty good to me. All right, Arizona at 9. A lot of ways I could go here, but I think you got to make this offense better. The defense has gotten a lot better, and as much as I would love to take Arvell Reese to this team, I can't fathom another linebacker pick for Arizona. That feels a bit almost comical, to be honest with you, although I've done it in past mock drafts for sure. I'm not going to do it in this one, though. I would love to go offensive line, but the last, the main two guys, Fanow and Francis, are off the board. I can't take Jennings Dunker or Proctor or a guard here, so I'm not going to take that. I'm going to ultimately take a receiver. Now, there's a couple guys who are on the board here who I am a big fan of. Micaiah Lemon is somebody who maybe lacks a little bit in size at 5'11", 195, but man, he's been a really productive player that catches almost everything at USC. You can play him in the slot. You can play him on the outside. I think that's who I might take here, but man, you can never go wrong with taking an Ohio State receiver like Carnell Tate. He's having a really good start to his career, or to his season this year. Obviously, you can see 476 yards, 4 touchdowns, made a couple nice plays against my Texas Longhorns. He's got the size, 6'3", 195. I think it's all just a matter of like, what do you want? Do you want somebody who can play inside while you have Marvin Harrison playing a bit more on the outside? Or do you want that running mate with Marv and Carnell Tate on the outside, and then you're going to trust somebody to play on the inside? It's honestly up in the air. If I'm going to pick one, and it's truly a coin toss, I think I'm going to go Micaiah Lemon. I just think with Kyler Murray and his style, I want to get somebody who can become a bit of a safety blanket for him. And I think Micaiah Lemon, and he could play on the inside. He could run a lot of the underneath routes. He could also win deep, play in the intermediate. He could just do it all. But I'm looking for somebody that makes Kyler Murray's job a lot easier. And I think Micaiah Lemon probably makes his job a lot easier. He gives him a target that he can consistently go to instead of having to try and force feed the ball to Marv. He can find that guy, can consistently get open and make plays. I think Micaiah Lemon makes some sense there. All right, Houston's on the board at number 10 here, and I'm gonna have to reach on an offensive lineman. There's no shot in this world I go out of this draft without taking a lineman, and there's a couple ways I could go about doing this here. I could take Jennings Dunker, stick him inside to play guard, where he might be best suited to play at, but that's projecting. I could also go with the high upside pick in Caden Proctor, who, again, I think probably has to move inside at guard, although he is a freaky athletic player. I just think his footwork is better suited for a guard. Or I could just take the actual guard, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this guy's name, Iona, I think that's how you say his name, and take him. Or I could take Conor Liu and keep him at center and then upgrade from the center position. I feel like I'm reaching here on every single one of these players. Honestly, I'm tempted to just go with the high upside pick of Proctor, because at least Proctor can stick at tackle. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Proctor here, because I think I can keep him at tackle if he develops there nicely, and then if he doesn't work out at tackle, especially during training camp when he's going up against like the Will Andersons of the world, then we put him at guard and we feel pretty good about him moving forward. So I'll take Caden Proctor here, although I don't really feel great about it. They have to address offensive line, and Caden Proctor's a big-ass dude. You put Proctor with Ariante Ursary, those are two big dudes that can absolutely work. All right, Dallas here at number 11, and man, the board has fell really, really nicely for them. TJ Parker's here, Jermon McCoy's here, and Arvell Reese. I mean, you really cannot go wrong with any one of those guys. The question will be, do I want to prioritize getting a pass rusher to pair opposite of Donovan Ezeraku? Do I want to replace Trevon Diggs with Jermon McCoy? Or do I want to pair DeMarvion Overshown with a stud in Arvell Reese? Obviously, linebackers are not a premium position, and I actually think the linebacker class this year is quite talented, especially down the board. So I'm not going to take Arvell Reese here. Like, if they take Anthony Hill or Torian York or any of these guys in round 2 or 3, I think you'll feel really good about it. So I'm not going to take Arvell Reese here. And I'm really tempted to take Jermod, but it's a bit of a projection because we haven't seen him play yet. I'm going to go with the pass rusher in TJ Parker. I think he has room to grow. He's 6'3", 260. He's still fairly young. He's playing well. He's definitely, again, I talked a bit earlier about it. I do worry a tad bit about, is he maxed out immediately heading into college? I mean, 12 sacks in 2024, only 2 sacks this year, but he's still getting after the quarterback at a fairly high level, and Dallas desperately needs a pass rusher. So if you can put TJ Parker next to Donovan Ezeraku, let those guys cook for a few years, I think they'll make a lot of sense, and they'll work perfectly next to each other. So I'll go TJ Parker here. All right, Carolina at 12 is up, and I'm kind of tempted to go with another receiver. I know a third straight year of receivers, how much more help does Bryce need? But Leggett has not developed the way that you'd want him to, and Ted McMillan has been honestly perfect for this team. They still need more help around Bryce Young. I could also go linebacker here in Arvell Reese because Lord knows the Carolina Panthers could use a linebacker. I guess the question is, do I want to take another receiver, or do I want to help this defense actually play good football? I'm going to go with Arvell Reese. I think he's excellent in coverage. He's great getting downhill and making plays. I'm going to go with Reese. He's having a fantastic year. So I'll go with Reese to fill in that linebacker for a Carolina team that badly needs it. All right, 13, I got the Baltimore Ravens. They need a lot of things on the defensive side of things. I mean, they could use another corner. Maybe I go Jermod or Mansour Delane. They can use help in the interior. I could go with the Caleb Banks. Maybe an edge rusher and Keldrick Falk, who might be better in a 3-4 system. Maybe I want to go with the design pass rusher like a David Bailey or a Cassius Howell. I mean, there's a lot of ways I can go here. I think I'm going to go somewhere on the defensive line. Mike Green's been quite disappointing this year, which has been kind of a shocker for me. I thought he was going to play a lot better. I think I might go Keldrick Falk. He's a little bit bigger. They say 6'6", 285. I think that weight's going to be a little bit higher than what he actually is, but I think he can fit into that, potential inside edge rusher position for this Baltimore Ravens defense. I don't know what the coaching staff's going to look like next year. For all I know, this can completely change, but I think they need somebody who can help them stuff the run while also getting after the quarterback a little bit. I'll go Keldrick Falk. I think pair him up with who they have coming back for next year could make that defensive line quite good, especially if Mike Green does take some steps forward. All right, Chicago's here. This is an easy pick. I'm going to go Jeremiah Love. Chicago needs a running back. I don't think Swift is the future guy. I think Love is definitely that guy who can step in. And the nice thing for Chicago is they're going to kind of waltz into the pick here no matter where they're at, because I don't think any team's going to take Jeremiah Love unless they're going to reach for him. Like maybe Arizona could go for Jeremiah Love. I think that could make some sense, but they got other issues they have to address. I think Chicago could quite comfortably take Jeremiah Love somewhere in the teens here. All right, Washington's on the board. This pick is also quite easy. I'm going to go Jermon McCoy. The Marshawn Lattimore experience hasn't quite worked out for them. You have some other guys there who I'm excited about, like Trey Amos and, of course, Mike Sanders still. Then you pair another young corner in Jermon McCoy, and you're getting younger in the secondary while also getting a lot better. So I think both those guys, Jermod, Sanders still, and Trey Amos would be a perfect addition for this young secondary. He also has the size element to play on the outside. You'd have two well-sized outside corners with a guy on the inside who's a little bit undersized, but still feisty as hell. All right, Minnesota's on the clock here, and they're kind of a weird team because the quarterback position is very interesting for this team. And I really wonder if McCarthy struggles the rest of the way, if they would consider Dante Moore here. Just throwing it out there. I know we can't quite call out or count out, JJ McCarthy, but I really wonder if they would consider him here if JJ struggles the rest of the way. I'm just throwing it out there. I think I'm ultimately going to go with Mansour Delane, though. He's having a really good year for LSU. I mean, I think he's playing football as I'm recording this video, and he's been really productive. 6 foot, 190, can get some turnovers, an interception on the year. I mean, look at the passer rating, 22.7 when he's being targeted, 22 targets, only 6 receptions. I think he's solid in run support. He's got a good size. I also think you can move him around to play different positions too, which is a really nice thing about Minnesota. They already have a couple guys you feel good about, but I think adding that other outside corner would make some sense here. So I'm going to go Mansour Delane. And again, I think you can move him or other pieces around and make this secondary that much better. I also would have considered interior defensive line, but Caleb Banks has a season-ending injury, and I just couldn't fathom taking any of these other guys at 16. Not yet, at least. All right, with the first pick for Cleveland, we did take Fernando Mendoza. I want to give him a weapon on the outside, and man, when in doubt, take an Ohio State receiver. I'm going to take Carnell Tate here. Yes, I know offensive line is a huge need, but I can't fathom taking a lot of these guys. I like Jennings Dunker. He'd probably be the pick if I was to pick a guy here, or Iona, but I think Carnell Tate's a future really excellent receiver. Him, Jerry Jeudy, and all those other guys in the tight end room. Yeah, give me Carnell Tate to pair up with Fernando Mendoza. The rest of their draft will be spent on offensive linemen, so just keep that in mind. All right, the Rams are on the board here. We're going to have a couple picks in a row, 18 and 22 for the Rams here. So I need a quarterback, and look, the board has fell nicely for me. I got Dante Moore ready to come into town. I'm taking Dante Moore. I know he didn't play particularly well in the game versus Indiana. You can see a 46.3 grade for him. Just really bad day, but I'm not too worried about it. I do believe, and this is something that hasn't been confirmed to myself or really to anybody, I do think he returns to Oregon. I'll just throw that out there. I think he will return to Oregon. However, if he has a good end to the season, I could see people telling him, hey man, you're going to be a first round pick. You might not want to end up like Drew Aller. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, we'll take Dante Moore here to be the future heir to Matthew Stafford, who I think this or next year will probably be his final season. All right, 19, I got Denver. This one's really easy. I'm taking Kenyon Sadiq, the most interesting tight end prospect of this year's draft class. There's some good tight ends in this year, but Kenyon Sadiq is definitely the guy. Like, I like Claire. I think Andrews has talent. I like Eli Stowers and Joy Rowers having a pretty good year. But when it comes down to it, Kenyon Sadiq is like, he's the ultimate weapon in terms of as a receiving threat. And he's not afraid to get his nose dirty and make some blocks. He's definitely improving there. But as a weapon, he is a freak athlete. And when it comes to the Denver Broncos, they could really use that difference maker on the outside. I also think receiver makes a ton of sense here, like a Denzel Boston. But I think Kenyon Sadiq just makes the most sense. All right, 20, I got the Patriots, and I think I'm going to probably go with an offensive lineman here, and I think I'm going to go with Jennings Dunker. Now, my plan with Jennings Dunker would be for him to play right guard in the future, so that's my thought process with him. Could he stick at tackle and be Will Campbell one side, Jennings Dunker's on the other side? Sure, but I'm going to move Jennings Dunker inside to play right guard. I also would consider Connor Liu here as well, but I'm going to take Jennings Dunker here. I think you keep him at guard, and I think he's a really talented player, really strong, excellent in run blocking too, which is exactly what this Patriots team needs to get better at, which is running the football. I think Jennings Dunker would help improve that. All right, Pittsburgh here helps me kind of finish off these quarterbacks. I'm going to go with Lenore Sellers. I know it's a bit of a risky play here for Pittsburgh, but man, he's electric. He is a freaky athlete. Like, there's a conversation for Lenore to go all the way at number one here. I'm just not willing to take him at number one because I think he is a complete work in progress. Despite being a work in progress, though, man, he is an excellent athlete with a cannon of an arm, and I think he is playing better football. Right now, South Carolina is just not a great football team with all of the issues they have with that roster, but Lenore Sellers has talent. He's got to get the ball out quicker, though, and he's got to process faster. He would be somebody that, and if I can find a, I don't want to say Russell Wilson because he's terrible, but like a Gardner Minshew or somebody like that to start for a season, then let Lenore start, I think I would consider that. Like, I don't know what quarterbacks might be out there in free agency, but if I can find that vet to sit over him, maybe like a Jacoby Brissett would be nice. Sit over him for like 6 to 8 weeks and then let Lenore start. I think that would be the ideal situation. I just don't think it would make much sense to start Lenore immediately. Although Pittsburgh has a talented enough roster to where they can support a young, quarterback that might be going through ups and downs. All right, 22, I got the Rams back up, and a couple ways I could go here. Obviously, corner would be a bit of a need here for this team. I also think underrated pickup could be a Denzel Boston. Adams only has, after this year, one more year on the deal. So you got Adams and Puka for another year, and then after that, I got to assume you're probably going to let Adams walk because of the contract. Although, arguably he might be able to return because Stafford will probably be gone. So there's an argument to be made there, but Denzel Boston could be, that outside receiver with Puka Nacua doing a bit of everything. I'm not going to do that, though, because I just don't think that that's probably their biggest need. I'm going to go with a cornerback here, although I could also consider lineman, but there's no great offensive lineman still on the board, especially no tackles. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take Avian Terrell. He doesn't have the size element that I'm looking for, 5'11", 180, and he's pretty light, but he is a willing tackler, and he's just really sticky in coverage. So I'm going to go with Avion Terrell. Not having the greatest of years, but he's still playing good enough football. I could go Colton Hood as well. He's having a really nice year for Tennessee. I could go with him, especially because he is a little bit bigger at 6'1", 195. But I'm going to go Avion Terrell. He's been doing it a little bit longer than some of these other guys. He's just been really reliable, sticky in coverage. He's a little undersized, but I'll go Avion Terrell here. All right, 23. This pick is actually quite easy. I'm going to go ahead and take Connor Liu at center for this team. I know Liu isn't having the greatest of years compared to what he had last year, but I still think he is a starting caliber center in the NFL and a really good one at that. You have Mekhi Becton on one side. You're going to get Rashawn Alt. You're going to have Joe Alt. You need to shore up that interior in that middle, especially. I'm going to go with Connor Lew to be that guy. All right, 24, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Not a ton of needs here, but I'm going to go with a cornerback here because I believe Reek Willen is probably not going to be on this team as soon as maybe the trade deadline, but definitely in free agency, he's going to go elsewhere. So that means I have a couple options here. I could go with an AJ Harris, who is definitely more of a, I would say more of a press man coverage guy who hasn't really been tested a whole bunch this year. You can see only 9 targets on the season. As you can see, it's been kind of downhill ever since Drew Aller and the team lost to Oregon, but it's definitely not really been his fault. He just hasn't really been tested a whole bunch. Not that he's playing particularly well, but I'm going to go with Colton Hood here. I think you pair him up with Witherspoon and some of those other guys in the secondary. I'll go Colton Hood. He's having a really good year for Tennessee. All right, Dallas up at 25, and man, there's a couple ways we can go here. We took TJ Parker in round 1 to add to the pass rush. Again, I think we can take linebacker in rounds 2 or even 3 because there's a lot of talented guys here. Like a Whit Weeks for Dallas would do wonders for this team. But I'm going to go with Caleb Banks here. And again, he's coming off an injury, so we'll see if he's able to return by time training camp rolls around next year. But you have your pass rush sort of potentially kind of forming into something better. Now you add Caleb Banks, who's a really good run stuffer. You can see the numbers here. He had 4 sacks last year. Again, he only played like a couple snaps in the LSU game, a total of 29 plays. So we can't really go off of much of what happened this year, but I think he's a good pass rusher. He also has the size at 6'6", 330, and he is definitely going to be somebody that can help stuff the run. You got Osa. We'll see if Kenny Clark returns. You have the 2 picks. I think you improve the defensive line. Secondary would have to be something you'd have to address either in free agency or through a trade somehow. So I'll go Caleb Banks here. All right, 26, I got San Francisco. And boy, oh boy, the injuries have stacked up for this team. There's a lot of ways I could go here. I could go with an Iona, but I don't know if guard's their biggest need. I feel like tackle was probably their bigger one. I guess I could go with like a Caleb Lomu, who's having a fine season this year, but man, he struggled versus Tech, which is like NFL competition. I'm a big fan of Gooseby, but obviously I can't take him here. He's probably going to return to Texas, if anything. I'm kind of tempted to go with the pass rusher. I know you took Mike Hill, and I know you have Nick Bosa, but man, you take Nick Bosa out the game, like you just don't have a pass rush right now. And I don't know if Micah Williams is truly that guy to be a pass rusher. I don't think receiver unless Ayuk's off the team, but I really like how Ricky Pearsall's looked so far this year when he's been out there. So I don't think I'm going to take that. I think I'm going to take David Bailey because, man, he's just been really dominant for this Texas Tech team, absolutely getting after every single quarter. Look at here, 9 sacks on the season. Now, he is a little bit lighter. I said 6'3", 250. But I do worry about that translating to the NFL. But if he can get after the quarterback, even if he's not excellent versus the run, man, I put him out there on 2nd and 3rd downs opposite of Nick Bosa. We took Micah last year because he can be a run stuffer. So you got Micah, Nick Bosa on 1st and maybe 2nd downs, David Bailey, and then Nick Bosa on 3rd down or obvious passing down. So I'm going to go David Bailey here. All right, Buffalo up at 27. They are really bad against the run. So I feel like we have to either go with like a Christian Miller, who's really good against the run. Maybe LT Overton could make some sense. A bit of a bigger 6'5", 270 edge that can set the edge. And one of the issues they're having right now is Bosa and, whoever plays opposite of Bosa really struggle to set the edge. They have like a super high missed tackled rate. So, you could see a possibility for them to go after like an LT Overton or Christian Miller. I think that's where I will go. They also need help on the offensive end because Keon Coleman hasn't really developed as a receiver. And I think Denzel Boston makes sense. But I think for a team that is struggling mainly because the defense can't stop a damn run, I feel like you have to address that spot more so than add a receiver. Like this receiver class is pretty good. And I think you can find like an Elijah Surratt in rounds 2 or one of these other guys. So as much as I would like to take a Denzel or even a Chris Braswell, who's an absolute speedster on the outside, but he's not that the Giants guy. I can't remember his name, but he's not that. I think I'll go with Christian Miller. I know that you do have some guys out there like Dion and Ed Oliver, and you're going to get a bit healthier there. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go LT Overton. I think he's strong at the point of attack. You can have him set the edge. I'll go LT Overton here. He can also get after the quarterback quite a bit. So, yeah, I'll go LT. Although, if you want to go Christian Miller, I think that makes a lot of sense, too. All right, Indianapolis is on the board here, and I think I got to go somewhere either corner or linebacker. AJ Harris is the last guy who I think I would probably take right now. But I guess it depends if he's a schematic fit for Indianapolis. And when it comes to like a size element, I feel like he would I don't know. The Indianapolis is a very bizarre drafting team. It's always hard to kind of predict who they would go after. They could also use a pass rusher too. I mean, you got Laiatu Latu, but you might want another guy. I worry about Cassius Howell developing into an NFL pass rusher because of his length and size. But man, he's been productive this year for A&M, and you know he's doing it versus pretty good competition. They got some guys in Florida and Notre Dame and even Auburn, so could go there. I could go Romello Height, who, boy oh boy, having a stellar season for this team as well. I don't know. I think I might go. Corner's really been 8 and up so far. I don't think I'm gonna take AJ Harris. Linebackers, again, one of those positions where you can probably take one in round 2. Sonny Styles would probably be the guy who I would go with here because he's having a really good year. But no, I'm going to go with Cassius Howell here. I'll go Cassius Howell, get that other pass rusher to Laiatu Latu. All right, 29, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think linebackers are a pretty big need for this football team. They could take a guard like, again, Iona would make some sense here. They could also go pass rusher with a guy like Romello Height, but I'm going to go linebacker. They can only get so much more out of Levante David and those guys. They're getting older. They're getting worse. I think adding a guy like a Sonny Styles having a really good season, can play in coverage, can definitely eat up space, I think makes some sense here. All right, Philly at 30. It says their biggest need is receiver. I'm going to assume they believe that A.J. Brown will be off the team. I'm not going to make that assumption. If Brown is off the team, then I'm running the pick in for Denzel Boston, who's a fantastic player, but I don't think he's going to be off the football team. So because of that, I think I'm going to go either with Romello Heights or AJ Harris, because right now they have an issue with their second corner. You got Cooper DeJean, who can play in the nickel, can also play safety. You have Quinion Mitchell on the outside. You have Reed Blankenship, and you have Andrew Makuba. But that other outside corner position is really rough right now. And I think you could throw AJ Harris out there and find a lot of success. He's just a really good player. I know I'm not going to take a receiver here. I could go Romello Height. They could definitely use another pass rusher next to Nolan Smith. I think it's possible. I could even go with a guard because Tyler Steen just hasn't really been particularly great this year. And I know it's not a flashy pick, but Iona, or how do you pronounce his name, is having a really solid year for this football team. Got the size, 6'4", 328. I think it's interesting. I'm going to go with, I think I'll go with AJ Harris is what I think I'm going to do. Yeah, I'm going to go AJ Harris here. Again, any one of those guys makes some sense here. All right, 31, I got Kansas City. I'm tempted to take the size of Denzel Boston, pair him up with Rashee Rice and Worthy. I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think they could use another pass rusher, so I might go Romello Height here. Amari Washington's really fun as well. Can play next to Chris Jones. But you did take the guy from Tennessee last year, so I don't think you do that. I could even go running back, but this class it's pretty fine down the board, so I think you could probably take one in rounds 2 or 3 and feel pretty good. I really would love to get Denzel Boston off the board here, so I'm really tempted to take it, but I think I'm going to go with Romello Heights. I think you got to add more pieces. If you want to take Denzel, cool with me. I'll go Romello Heights. And lastly, at 32, I got the Detroit Lions. Again, this is just sort of a projection. I think they'll be picking somewhere around in the late 20s or 30s somewhere. I think you need pass rushers for sure. I also think maybe adding a guard to this team could make some sense because they are a little bit older, especially at the center position. And maybe you can move over one of your guys to center and then put Iona in at guard. Could check out. Christian Miller makes some sense here. You could also go some piece in the secondary because, man, they've been pretty banged up and injured. If AJ Harris fell, this might be an AJ Harris spot. I love Keith Apney, but probably can't go with that one here. That feels quite rich. I'm going to ultimately go with Ona here. I think you maybe can shift around this offensive line. You're getting a little bit older. I think you find your guy up the middle and have that kind of fill out your unit there. So as you guys can see, this is our mock draft for the 2026 NFL draft. You guys let me know in the comment section below, what do you agree with and what, of course, do you disagree with? And if you enjoyed, hit that like and subscribe button. I love you guys. Have a good day. Peace.